What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phoenix channel. Today is Sunday, March the 21st. Beautiful, hot day in Phoenix. I hope everybody's doing well and everybody's ready for the stream. If you like this content, consider hitting that like button. Consider subscribing to this channel as we go along in the EOS space. So without further ado, I thought today we would go through the EOS Eden concept in a whiteboard series. It's a new format I'm trying and making the videos a little shorter and on topic. So for those that don't know, this is a concept that was recently proposed by Dan Larimer, formerly of Block 1 and the CTO of Block 1, who built EOS IO software and is now actually taking on much more of a leadership influencer role in the EOS mainnet, which is nice to see. So just what is EOS Eden Network, or the project itself, and what type of services might we expect in the future from this initiative? Well, for one, it's a voluntary subscription service. So it's not really based on folks requiring to pay for participating in this network service. It's more of a voluntary service where you would pay in if you're interested in participating in this. And we're going to get into more of what Eden actually entails. Secondly, there seems to be a theme of community reputation in the system. So part of this initiative is to develop streams of funding for different improvements for the EOS network. And with that comes what I think is a unique way to capture reputation of members within that Eden network itself. And we'll get into a little bit more about that. The third thing is there's vote on funding of initiatives, and so that's really the core of, I think, a lot of what Eden is trying to accomplish. Right now, the biggest challenge is how to distribute funds within a decentralized system from, say, thousands or millions of users to really the best ideas on a network. And so what Eden is looking to do is create the framework, create a new consensus framework for basically a voluntary system to grow this, and maybe through even some involvement from the likes of Block.1. And fourth, the other area we did hear about somewhat from Dan is to use this initiative to create what I kind of alluded to earlier, which is seamless onboard tools. So right now, the user experience for new users on EOS is to keep it short and sweet, a little bit complicated at times, given the requirements for buying up resources to interact with the network. And so through a series of initiatives, it seems like is being led by Dan. One of those examples would be billing, services billing. So right now on the EOS network, we have at the very low level of performance, you have your primitive layers of resources. And in the future, with dApps that scale and provide the same types of user experiences we have now for many of the legacy applications, that is going to require a offering by API providers, decentralized API providers on all types of data, oracles, and those types of typical components you would expect in an application. And so part of this initiative is to, my understanding, consolidate those into something that is basically just seen by the user as one fee, or maybe even having the application pay the fees. So that's another one that we're really excited about within the EOS network. So let's talk about the EOS Eden vote concept, or at least how I understand it. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this video is this is subject to my interpretation, and it's also a very fluid development by Dan. So this could actually change from when you're viewing this video, or it could evolve from its current inception to its actual refined system under development. So the concept goes something like this. Imagine you have a series of individuals, unique individuals, and you have a system that randomly assigns each of those individuals within this large pool to one of many teams of 10. And so that randomization is very important to get decentralization. And there is another key assumption here that the users themselves have been verified to be unique, and there is a method in place to audit the integrity of that process. One way that Dan has proposed to minimize the chance of large influences on the network for the funds that would be distributed based on the voting is to require a admission, if you will, fee for participating in this Eden concept. So somewhere a nominal fee of $10 to $20 for each of the individuals that are within this network would hopefully guard against any potential outright abuse by the system. It's certainly not foolproof, but if you imagine, that certainly limits the amount of influence that any one particular entity can have, and they would have to consistently do that over time, and also potentially put their stake at risk for outright abuse that could be called out by the community. So this is certain to generate a lot of interest from parties that are really looking to take the lead on key initiatives and get funding for Eden. And this shifts the weight from simply having EOS token holders who have large amounts of EOS to have outright influence in the network. And it provides what I would call as a counterbalance to that, in that this is more based on actual humans that make up this pool. That's this continuously evolving pool. And so that's your base layer at the bottom here. And so through those series of teams of 10, they will then interact with one another and cultivate and discuss different ideas. And the best idea within that group, or maybe perhaps the initiatives that everybody agrees on within that team, and each person might have a different idea. But the idea here is it's sort of a meritocracy at the different levels of this governance or consensus concept. And so in a meritocracy, the best ideas get voted upon with consensus from the other team members within each of the individual groups. That user then goes on and goes from the base layer up to the second layer, and in the process also achieves some nominal base funding for their initiative. And so if you imagine at each of these successive layers of EOS Eden, the users with this pooled amount of funds are, as they evolve and as they get further consensus from the members at the different levels in this randomized process, those top ideas eventually make their way to, say, a top level domain. And this is all obviously showing 3 layers, but in theory you could have many more layers, but the concept is all the same. As you evolve and as you obtain consensus in this method from the users, in theory the idea at the top level would receive a good portion of the funds to actually go out and achieve that for the network. So pretty interesting stuff there. We haven't really seen anything like this. If you look at crowdfunding today, it is not necessarily weighted in this way in a humanized format. It's mainly based on the allocation of funds that are given by select individuals. In this case, seems like it's a pool of funds from all these individuals, and through this governance process or consensus process, then we reach a determination about how to allocate the funding for the benefit of everybody on the network, which is pretty novel concept and has some what I would think is wider implications beyond just your standard tools on EOS. I mean, you could be looking at a concept like this to perhaps vote in block producers. Another example of this could be some type of a hackathon that's done in this way, just based on the funding, where you could actually pitch an idea like a hackathon within this Eden concept and utilize Eden as a consensus method to award the team with the best application, the actual usable application on something like EOS. So really far-reaching implications. Really excited to see what happens here, especially at that top-level domain. So this kind of just walks you through the new member process at a very high level. It starts by an existing subscription member within EOS, and so that's on your left side there. And again, what I mentioned earlier is that the proposed new member would have some admission fee into this network of users, and I think right now there's been some discussion about 5 to 10 EOS, although that's subject to change. And the reasoning behind that is to prevent spam attacks on the network of just bot users, and so by requiring an admission fee, it guards against some of that, and it also caps potentially the prize award to the total amount in. So it would seem to limit a lot of that potential abuse that's there. The subscription members, the two that are shown after the proposed or new member, their job is to actually verify the authenticity of the invitee. So we want to make sure, again, that no bots are associated with this. And so one way by doing that is to have the inviter verify the new member and have two randomly other members within the network also individually verify the member. And then in addition to that, there's a third layer, which is the ballot member, which is at a higher level, would verify also the authenticity of the invitee. So you basically have three levels of verification. One is at the initiator standpoint. One is the verification of real human at the subscription member level, and then one's at the ballot member level, which is my understanding. So pretty good system. Again, subject to change, but that's kind of the concept for now. And so what would end up happening in a case where a member was found to be potentially a bot or not real or in violation of the other rules of this Eden network? Well, an accuser could come forward and pay a bond for making an accusation against another member. And so the idea behind that is to prevent spam or spam accusations and attacks on the network. So similar to what we just described with initiating a new member evictions work in a very similar way. And from that standpoint, if the accuser is successful, that is, they're able to make their case and have random members that are subscription members that are randomly assigned to the jury, 3 of 5 agreement on the conviction for eviction, the accuser would get their bond plus some on there. Whereas if it was not the case, they would obviously lose the bond. So there is sort of a weights and measures justice that's been proposed for the system. And so this kind of just takes you through that process on how that could work. And you could also potentially see this Eden member eviction system if you really want to extrapolate this and where EOS is going, which is why I'm most excited, is you could see this member eviction or this consensus, this new layer of really human governance, I would call it, evolve into applications, complex applications where you need some type of um, arbitration, but you want to ensure some measure of fairness and also want to maintain some history of reputation. And this could be one way to do that. So with that said, guys, there's a couple EOS Eden resources you might want to check out. There's the eoscommunity.org website, which is something that Dan has set up. And I'd highly recommend you guys check out his drafts to find out more information about it. You can go to the EOS Project Telegram voice chat. I think Dan's holding, on Mondays, he's holding actual voice chats around noon. And the last resource there is the Everything EOS channel, and that's Friday's show on the 19th. They actually brought Dan on and had him do a whole show on Eden. So those are your resources for now, and also stay tuned to this channel and others who are covering this development. It's nice to finally see, I think, a change in momentum, a change in sentiment within the network. Your boy Phoenix has gotten more bullish on EOS. Not investment advice. EOS is still struggling, I would say, with the price movements between $3.50 and a little bit under $5, actually. It just seems to continually stay stuck there. So, but from a development perspective, this is a very positive development, and it's nice to see, again, Dan the Man back in action and really leading the conversation like we haven't seen in many years. This has been something a long time in the making for many who have stuck around. And shout out to the Everything EOS guys, Cheney and Zach, as well as the EOS apologists, all the homies online, the plebs, Crypto Fees and the Crypto Type, Felix Stoffelbaker, and just everybody in EOS. It's been quite a ride. So with that said, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. And if you have any questions or have some comments, leave them in the chat below. And shout out to Brian Phobos as well. He definitely gave me a shout out, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the content creators really just continuing their effort with EOS. So it's been years now. It's hard to believe that, but it's exciting. We're going to see what happens here. So with that said, guys, I'm going to kick this one off a little short. Hope everybody's doing well. This is Phoenix signing off.